Hi guys, it's Nicole and welcome back to finally having another process video with Creating with Collections. A reminder, Sarah Scraps herself is collaborating with this round. This is with the Storyteller collection from Cocoa Vanilla. I am actually a little embarrassed to go back and look at what date we started. I want to say it might have passed the 1 year mark. So Sarah, I'm so sorry. I started this layout a very long time ago. This was the layout that I was sort of in the middle of working on when I got the bug to finally clean my room. And so this just got set to the side. So I think up through the phase of the stitching is what I did prior to deciding to clean out my room. And this is the phase in this sort of self-imposed challenge that takes me longer, but I tend to enjoy more. I like digging through all these little scraps and trying to sort of breathe life into the broken, busted pieces that are still my favorite patterns, and trying to kind of come up with creative ways to maybe find a use for the products that I have just continued to look over again and again. With this one and the following layout that I did, I was sort of heavily focused on those 3x4 cards that were in a separate pack by themselves. They're not a cut apart. And I can't remember how many I actually got on this layout, but I took my two favorite dies, which are the notebook dies for my favorite things. I believe that these are retired. I finally got my hands on the horizontal one, which puts the notebook edge on the 4-inch side, thanks to one of you guys sending me a PM and being like, hey, did you know that it's in stock at this store? I immediately ran and bought it. This might be the first time I've cracked it open and used it, and it's just as good as its sister. I really wish that they would bring these back. I don't know why they won't. I kind of wish that there would be like another insurgence of like the office themed trend that was a couple years ago, where you could get like a lot of just good basic dies because that's what was trending. So yeah, I was focused on that, and then I was taking any sort of bits of scraps that were the right colors. And when I say right, I think basically I was leaning towards like the blues, the greens, and the yellows. And I would cut little pieces. And then even some of the 3x4 cards, while they were cute on their own, some of them I'm going to heavily cover up the text and the icons that's on it to get it used, to have it map my photo, and to sort of have it not go to waste. Now, these cute little labels that I'm over here fussy cutting apart, I'm going to end up finding the perfect place to put one of those green ones. It's going to hang out on this layout for a while. By the time I go to put the layout together, that sucker just disappears. I looked for it for a while, and this was after I cleaned my room. Like, I lost it while sitting at my desk putting the layout together, so I don't even have like a reliable excuse to be like, I don't know where I don't know where it went. But this is where my sort of status of my kit, it's a mess. And then I still have a full-size sheet of pattern paper, and I think that my intention was to use it as a full-size mat for this layout. I think my thought process at this point was to trim my layout down by 1/4 of an inch all the way around and just use that whole sheet of pattern paper as a mat without gutting the middle, just kind of get it used up. It's not really one of my favorite patterns, but sort of peeking out along the edge would have been fine. Did I remember to do that when I picked this up 2 months later? Absolutely not. That sheet of paper is still there. It's still staring at me, still uncut. Every time I go to do a layout, and you can see on the top of my screen all the random like bits and pieces that I have been fussy cutting to get myself embellishments that are specific colors. You would think that there wouldn't be enough to keep going. The problem is my brain is not like that. It keeps saying like, well, you could do this or you could do that. And then I'm like, okay, maybe we dabble in that. And then I spend 4 days die cutting stuff to make my own background. Anyways, you do you. I will always say that. You do you. I'm just showing me. I'm just kind of having fun with, like I said, this is more of like a self-imposed challenge. I missed some of those videos that different creators used to post where they would subscribe to, I don't even know anymore. It would have been like hip something. There was like a bunch of different kit clubs a couple years ago. And there was a couple of creators where they would just use up that kit down to the last little bitty pieces. And it was so satisfying to me. It's kind of like when you don't let the giant package of mixed greens rot in your fridge, where like you actually get down to it and you actually use it and it just feels really good. I missed that feeling. And so I was like, you know what? I've kind of always wanted to do that. However, I know that type of kit would not be for me. So I chose to go more of a collection route because I could really have control of what I was getting and what I was using. And this is the 4th version, and I've said this before, each time I've gone through, I have really learned what I do not enjoy working with and what I absolutely love to work with, as far as pattern styles, types of embellishments, techniques that I like to stretch the stuff. It's definitely a good learning experience for sure for me. I share these with you guys not as an intent to be like, oh, you should be this insane and like cut your scraps down to the nitty gritty. No. Only if your brain tells you to, only if it feels good to you. If not, don't do it. Like, you do you. Typically, once I've gotten to this stage, I don't have full-size sheets of paper. I've got a couple good chunks, and I'm kind of over here like not mentally in that mode anymore. And so I'm not real sure how many layouts I'm going to do. I continued to go back to this photo session until I ran out of photos. So I have this one, and then I have a double page one that'll come next, which kind of has all of like the, not necessarily like blooper photos, but just kind of all the weird ones where like they weren't really smiling, they were fighting with each other, Sarah's on the floor throwing a tantrum. So now that I've sort of used up all the photos for that photo session, I kind of need to go back through my digital photos and see if there's anything that sort of screams this collection, and see if anything kind of tickles my brain with the stuff that's left over. A lot of times what I end up doing is I've got a big piece of foam board that I will just lay out everything that's left. And I mean, every little piece, scrap, everything. I will kind of just make piles of, this is like the large pieces, this is stuff that I have yet to use, that type of thing. We are now in a more present time period. I had to pull a photo. Thank goodness I took a photo. I took a photo when I had laid everything out before I did my stitching. And so when I pulled this back off my shelf, I was like, I don't know where any of this stuff goes. And this is the point where even I'm watching now and I'm like, where did that green label go? I did lose one of the little clusters of florals that I painstakingly fussy cut because I didn't realize that it stuck to the back of something and I cut right into it. So that was a little frustrating, but I was definitely thankful that my first layout back from that massive room clean was something that I had already started. I already knew overall what the page design was. I just needed to put things together and then maybe make a couple final design choices. That was a perfect scenario for me to come back from that big of a break. Because typically for me, and I've heard from you guys as well, when you come back from a break, a lot of the time that first layout that you make either feels wrong, isn't as, I don't know what the right word to use. Not that it's bad or not that it's ugly. It's just sort of not like what your brain wanted. But you just needed to get it out of the way so that you could kind of move on and make the next layout. So I was very thankful that past me didn't finish this, and I could kind of have a little bit of a cheat as far as jumping back into the creative process now that I'm sort of out of the cleaning and purging mode. Oh, there, you can see that blue plaid paper is that full sheet. And even when I pulled it out, I was like asking myself, like, did I intend to mat this layout? Like, why do I have this and why is it on the top? I still forgot to go back and mat it. I think that's kind of why my stitching ends where it does, because I gave myself some wiggle room. In the end, I didn't. I ended up leaving it white. I kind of like it. I decided to just put the blue paper to the side, and I was like, maybe if I decide to continue and do more layouts, I will think of something for that. I do feel like 4 volumes in, I've done a better job, or I just have a better process as far as getting to the end with both paper and some embellishments, even if those embellishments are just papers that I can fussy cut stuff from. I learned these specific stickers were just not my jam. They're okay. Obviously, I used my favorites pretty quickly. I think they just kind of have this overall more like muted and like vintage vibe to them. And so, I don't know, it was just, for some reason, the way that the stickers were designed, it was a lot harder for me to figure out how to use them. So the extra fact that I had accidentally bought a second one was sort of frustrating to me, because if I only had one, I would have felt better about like how much I got used up. But there's a ton, and there's a ton of phrase stickers on there, which normally I love, but I think the overall theme of this collection, with it being Storyteller, was already sort of type heavy, with so many phrases and so many words being printed on every other part of it, that I found myself not really reaching for the phrase stickers like I normally would. So yeah, as I kind of got to the point where I had used up everything that I had already designated to put on here, was when I went back and was like, okay, what else can I kind of squish in here? And so I decided to kind of put some tone-on-tone embellishments over here on this 3x4 card that has the little rainbow paint stripies. I think that all the papers and all the cut aparts with that on it was my absolute favorite. I was using every little bit and piece of those. I had done a bunch of fussy cuttings on a video chat with a friend, so I had like some stuff to pull from that was like butterflies and florals that I could kind of tuck here and there. And then I just kept going back through the different scraps. I found a phrase that I felt like I could tuck in there to get used from the foam sheets. I kept going back to the sticker sheets. Decided to add some thread up here on the tags. I just kind of felt like that whole little section was a little bit, not plain or boring, but it was just, compared to everything else, I was like, this needs something. So I just took the colors that I have been using to stitch with this kit and just kind of, apparently I struggled hard, but I just wrapped it around a couple times and tied some loops. I do like to add glue to my knots just so that they don't come undone once they finally get to an album. A lot of times these layouts specifically don't get to an album for a while, just because I keep pulling them out when I do like layout shares, when I get to the end and I'm doing like my final video talking about the kit, like they kind of come off the shelf and back on the shelf a couple times. So I think that was the point. Yep, I called it done at that point. So kind of simple, but it did end up using up at least 4 of those 3x4 cards. So I felt like that was a good kind of dip into that product. And I used a ton of stuff that I just fussy cut and cut out of the printed icons. So with that, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.